We hope that you enjoyed today's show and will join in the discussion by dropping a review or comment. Please be aware that not all conversations on this show are suitable for children. Additionally, we may talk about things such as sexual abuse, domestic violence, and drug or alcohol abuse. If you feel that these things may trigger you, please do not tune in. Finally, if you are a heavy daily user of alcohol or drugs and are considering stopping, please consult a medical professional for assistance. It would be tremendous if you would like and share our content or even subscribe to our channel. Welcome to the conversation. Hi, thank you so much for joining us for our first couple of episodes. Our initial idea was to do kind of a 20 questions and, as sort of a get to know your host sort of idea. And we didn't do 20 questions, and the questions that we did do, we took way too long to answer. So we've ended up breaking it up into two different episodes. So hopefully you feel like you kind of get to know us through this process and you enjoy the content a little bit. And, we're just really happy that everybody's joined us today. Naturally, the questions will be focused on our experiences with recovery. Some of the questions will be more just discussion based between Rich and I, and a couple of them are just going to be for Rich in particular, as he has a bit longer experience than I do. First, a bit of a formal introduction. My name is Rich G. My sobriety date is February 22nd of 2024. My drug of choice is pretty much anything that's out there, but alcohol is what took me to my bottom.
My name is Rich V. Sober date is 8/16/2014. Definitely an alcohol guy. Did all the stuff when I was younger, but that all went by the wayside when I was like 23. And so August 16th, 2014, I was blessed for my first day of sobriety and been lucky ever since. Well, God's had his hand on it, kept me sober ever since. This whole thing is Rich's idea. It's the idea he had for sobriety, to help keep him sober and something to work on, something to be proud of, to keep himself going. I'm just sort of the tag along, just to help out on the whole deal. And but everything put together, it's been his idea. So hopefully we can keep it going. And so Rich, keep going.
As Rich mentioned, I came up with the idea. I had a little bit of time in between work when I got out of a residential recovery program, and I was inspired to do this program or this show as just something to keep myself engaged, keep myself busy, and to give back to the recovery community as a whole. You will find that I take a bit more of a scripted role, and that Rich is more of an ad lib piece of the puzzle for the program, kind of keep it fresh and not too scripted. And, Rich has been with me since the beginning of my efforts in recovery a few years ago. I've had some ups and downs, but he's been with me the whole time, and we really look forward to doing this together and really having it as part of both of our program.
Yeah, wouldn't it be nice if some of the dumb stuff we say to each other and we go through, it'd be great if someone out there hears something that maybe would help them in their recovery.
So on to the questions?
On to the questions. Let's roll. I'm looking forward to this.
Very good. So the first one that I have down is what scared you most or made you most hesitant about the thought of having to get sober?
Well, yeah, I mean, what scared me the most is I was getting rid of my best friend. I think we all realize that once we get to the point where we need to get rid of our favorite alcohol or drug or whatever it is that we're dependent on, they become our best friend. And how was I going to get through life without my best friend? And that was alcohol by that time. So yeah, it was like, how am I going to watch a baseball game without alcohol? How was I going to make it through a day of work without alcohol? It's just that was the daunting thing. That was the thing that that's what made me hesitant. Was that so? Yeah.
Yeah, that was very much my experience as well. Especially towards the end, I felt like alcohol was the thing that was keeping me sane. You know, that's what my brain was telling me. In fact, it was the thing that was making me insane. I came to find out later, but you know, it just took me again, just as Rich said, like alcohol had become my best friend. I actually mourned the loss of alcohol for several months when I initially tried to get sober. And the other question was, who would my friends be? You know, because every single one of my friends was associated with drugs and alcohol. And, you know, I actually did have a couple of friends that had, you know, recovered or attempted recovery in some way. But, you know, I felt like I was just going to be entirely isolated. And that was definitely the scary part, is that I just, what would I do? How would I cope with my problems? You know, and uh, I wasn't necessarily willing at first to accept what some of the programs out there had to offer to me to answer those questions.
All right. Was there a particular instance or a straw that broke the camel's back that made you want to get sober, or was it just accumulation of things over time?
A little bit of both, you know. Realistically, there were a lot of times, you know, my bottom was slowly dug a lot throughout the COVID pandemic when I was home and I didn't have work and I didn't have friends. And, you know, I just felt like life was pointless to a great extent. And so, you know, I just got to the point where I was waking up in the morning and my friend was alcohol, you know, and so I would go get alcohol and I would drink from morning until pass out about midday, and then I would drink more, you know, once I woke up. And that was what I had. And there were moments throughout that time where I'd be in such pain that I would, you know, stop drinking. But, you know, I was still in the mode then where after a couple of days, when I felt like I wasn't going to die, then I would start drinking again. You know, okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
I feel better. You know, here we go again.
Yeah, I said I was going to
Um,
stop, but
yeah, right. You know, or I'm gonna cut back. Right. The things that we say again and again. But then when I went to go back to work, I found that I couldn't stop drinking in the morning anymore, and I was showing up to work drunk and I was driving under the influence, and eventually it was noticed. You know, eventually my coworkers noticed, my boss noticed, and eventually I was called out on it, and I was given some time off because of it, and I couldn't stop drinking during that time off. You know, go home and take care of your crap, so to speak, and I couldn't take care of it. And so when I was called back in for my meeting after that time off, I showed up and I was drunk, you know? And
yep.
so they were like, Richard, you really need some help. And so that was the first time that I went into a residential program. I had never tried anything before that. Not AA, nothing. It was all of my own willpower and my own doing. I thought I could stop, and that just wasn't the case. You know, there was no
Yeah.
doing it on my own. And so, yeah, that was the straw that broke the camel's back the first time. So that started my journey in sobriety.
Yeah, you know what? With me, I wanted to just tell my gig real quick. I uh, with alcohol, with a lot of us, well, most of us, it was slowly took over my life, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And with alcohol, I realized that, once I got sober, and I could stand back, it killed me a little bit at a time. Just you could feel that connection to God, to your higher power, get kind of shut down as longer you drink, the less of you is left, the less of your connection with your higher power, the connection with your real you, connection of anything else except your relationship with your alcohol. It's pretty much the only relationship you have left. And I was in my favorite place in the world. I was in Maui with my fiance at the time, and my mom and my sister, and all I could think of was how dead I was inside. I wasn't having a good time. I was not. I wasn't happy, and I told at that time my fiance, my mom, and my sister, I got to go to rehab. That's it. I can't take it anymore. I'm in paradise, and I was actually in living hell. That was it for me. And I had done with all the lies. I was done with driving my daughter to school drunk in the morning. That's that that killed me the fastest. I think inside was doing that on a regular basis, and yeah, that's straw that broke the camel's back. There are a lot of things, but that's when I really realized it. Was then, yeah.
Speaking of rehabilitation, what was your favorite thing about going through a residential rehabilitation program?
I loved rehab. I absolutely loved rehab. I loved it so much I went back a second time. But it's going through the withdrawals and what the heck you call that room? But
Detox room.
thank you. I couldn't know why I couldn't remember. Yeah, go through the detox room is both horrible and actually kind of cool because you're going through the DTs and you're sweating and you feel pretty horrible and it just and then the guy next to you in the other bed is doing the same thing, and you kind of make a camaraderie right from the start. You look at each other and go, "Oh, dude, this sucks, and why did I do this?" And you walk out of the detox room, and then there's that guy that's been there for 26 days with that big smile on his face, telling you, "Hey, it gets better. Just hang in there, one day at a time." At first you want to punch that guy, but then you start getting to know the people. Then the people that running the facility, if you're at even a decent place, they're going to be behind you 100%, and you've had no one behind you for 100% for a long time. You got people that want to help you, and then you've got your litter mates that want to help you and that want to be friends with you, and you've just spent so much time running through all of your friends and all of your relatives that none of them want anything to do with you anymore. But here's a group of new friends that love you unconditionally, because they're all in that pink bubble and all having, getting along with each other. And so, yeah, the first time through rehab, I'd been there that 28 days, and I thought I was just awesome. And last day, everyone's in the couches, laying around, sitting around, and I high-five all of them because I was cured, and that was it for me. And I wasn't cured. I did some work when I got out there, and but I didn't do all the work. Half measures avail us nothing, and I half measured way too much of it. And what was it? 10 months later, I was back there, trying it again. So but I did. I enjoyed rehab. It was gave me first taste of what I could actually accomplish. So yeah. How about you?
Yep, same. Really enjoyed rehab for a lot of the same reasons, And so I look back. I went twice as well, as you know. And the first time that I went, like I mentioned in the opening, like I had never tried anything to get sober before,
Yeah, me
and
neither.
yeah,
Sorry to interrupt, but I had never even wanted to get sober
yeah,
before. It hadn't even crossed my mind.
exactly right.
Yeah.
No way, like sober. What? Why? But
People do that.
right. But my first time going in, I was scared. I was apprehensive. I was there of my own accord, sort of, you know, with a big question mark. Like, my concept was like, I've just got to get to where I can manage it, right? That was definitely my first go. And then, same thing, started out in a detox room, which I found completely miserable. um, but you do connect with people, right? And you have the people like that are saying hi to you on the first day, but you're kind of like shaking and you're green, and in my experience, you stink. That everything's coming out of your pores. Like
Yeah,
it's just
yeah, you did.
it's a rough. Thanks. It's a rough go that first that first 3-4 days when you're in there, like just if you're detoxing when you first get there. Some people detox before they get to the actual residential piece. Maybe they go to the hospital, but both times that I went in, I was detoxing while I was there, and that's a hard first few days. But it's amazing how nice and accepting people are right from the moment that you walk in. Nobody's rejecting you. Everybody welcomes you with open arms. And then, yeah, after you're there for a few days, you're the guy that's, hugging the new guy that's coming in, that's, smelling and unsure of himself. And, you're just like, it's okay, and you're helping him, show him around the grounds and, taking care of him and getting him a glass of water or, whatever. And you really do, for that 21 to 30 days that you're there, you become a little family and you take care of each other and you spend a ton of time together. And, it's super rewarding. The first time I went in to try to figure out how to manage my disease and, lived in denial for a few years after that, still not quite willing to accept the full scope and impact of my disease. And then the second time I went in was because I was scared and I needed a safe place to go dry out, and I knew that I'd be safe for a few weeks if I went in again, and so I did. And today I feel really fortunate. I'm actually part of an open AA meeting that goes into the same residential house that I stayed in, and so I kind of still get to be a little bit part of that, where like I get to go in and I get to see the guy that's been there for only a few days, and then a week later I get to go back and see him after him or her after they've come around a little bit, and now they've got a little clique of friends that they're hanging out with, and
Yeah.
the color's back in their face and they're not shaking and they feel more confident. And it's just it's really cool to see that development, and it really does become part of your sobriety to see them kind of grow and start to feel better and come to accept their situation a little more. Those that will, not everybody will. Anyway, really, really rewarding experience, if you're willing to let it be.
Yeah, you gotta make sure when you're leaving the facility too. That's not the work is just starting. It's not finished by any uh, piece
Right.
of imagination. No, it's the work is just starting when you walk out the door. Yeah, I didn't get that the first time. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm still working. And the fact that I said I only went to rehab twice. That's it so far. Hopefully I'll never walk into rehab again, but you never know. You never know. One day at a time. All those things. So, how'd you meet your sponsor?
Well, as we alluded to, Rich is my sponsor, but the first time that I went through residential, one of the very kind people that was in residential with me after we got to know each other a little bit, we were approaching the end of our program, and she tells me, "Hey, I've got somebody that you've got to meet."
Really good friend of mine.
Yeah,
One of my best
and
friends.
she was just like, "I think you guys would be a good fit. You guys have very similar personalities," and she invited him to lunch when we were in a partial hospitalization program. So, kind of after rehab, you can do a little bit of a step down where you're in program for 8 hours or so, 7, 8 hours during the day, and then you can either go home or you go back to your SLE or whatever your situation might be, sober living environment. And so Rich came out one day for lunch, and we met. And after that introduction, I think, agreed that day that we would try each other on as sponsor sponsee, and we exchanged information. And I started texting him and making the phone calls that I was supposed to. And then
Tuesday, Thursday. Yeah.
and initially, I think it was a Tuesday meet in person. Anyway, we switched it up. Eventually, now, still 3 years later, it's a Tuesday, Thursday phone call that goes for 15 to 30 minutes on average, sometimes longer. And then if we get chatty, and then
No, we never get chatty.
and then an hour get together on Sunday, and that's been the schedule for 3 years now, and it's worked well. He's been with me through a lot of ups and downs and sideways and all different directions, and very patient with me. And but yeah, so met my sponsor through a friend before not before. Yeah, probably before I ever even hit a real AA meeting. I was fortunate enough to come across the person that would be my sponsor.
Yeah, little did he know that at the time I really needed a sponsee. I was just about to hit a really difficult time in my life, and having a sponsee at that time has been a blessing, because staying sober the last few years probably would have been pretty difficult if I didn't have him tagging along. So yeah, it was perfect timing. God just said, "Hey, let's go ahead and do this and make it work," as God usually does. He got it right again. Yeah. So yeah, it's worked out well for us.
How'd you meet your sponsor?
Oh, my sponsor. My sponsor was a good buddy, really good buddy. We used to do the church we were going to. We used to do all of these breakfasts and dinners and stuff. And me and another buddy used to run all the event, all the breakfasts and dinners and so forth. And um, uh, then my buddy Earl would come along and help us out too. And he was a chef, and I'd been in the restaurant business since I was 15, and stuff. And so we would get in there and we would just blow up these meals and stuff like it was nothing, and have a great time. We were doing it, and I knew he was sober for a long time. And so as soon as I was in rehab and they said, you got to get a sponsor, I said, I know whose mine it's going to be. And it's Earl, and I couldn't have chosen a better guy. Earl's just, I don't know, when you say salt of the earth, he's just one of the most interesting, loving people you're ever going to meet. I center around a lot of my recovery, and a lot of the 12 steps, and everything I know about recovery. A lot of it centers around love. Life centers around love, and I got a lot of that from him, and it just he got that just so stuck in my brain and stuck in my heart about how much love there is in this world that we just have only tapped a little bit of, each of us. and there's just so much more out there for us, in ourselves and in each other. And I'm blessed to have Earl as a sponsor. But yeah, he's a good buddy of mine. And so that was easy to find a sponsor then. Yeah.
Very cool. So I know that relapse is part of both of our stories.
Yeah.
If you were to pick the top couple, 3 warning signs of relapse, what would you say they are?
Well, of course, everything when you boil it down is fear, and that's what gets you to relapse. You're angry at work, and you can't blow the steam off, and you don't want to, that'll lead you to it, when you're tired, and you don't want to meditate, you don't want to go to a meeting, you don't want to do anything else. You stop skipping meetings, you stop, listening to what people say, you walk away from the pack, that'll get you as soon as you stop away, especially early in recovery. But even later, I still go to a meeting a week. You got to stay in the pack. As soon as you stop walking away thinking, I got it, there you go for a relapse. And once you walk away from your higher power, when you stop saying your prayers, when you stop talking to God on a regular basis. My higher power, I call God, but that's, it's more than just the God in the Bible and all that sort of stuff. But when you walk away from God and you stop having God in your life, that's the relapse. That's going to happen whether you're drinking or not. That's a relapse happening. So what's gotten you on your relapses? Okay,
so many things. For me, definitely the work stresses, just needing to find a way out, and not feeling that I could rely on, not having any relationship with anything outside of myself, right? Like not having any relationships in meetings, not having any relationship with a higher power, nothing to turn to outside of myself, right? So it's all on me and it's all my problem. And when I can't deal with that problem, I turn to something that will shut my brain down, right? So that my brain will stop nagging at me. That's a really big one. A really big one for me is exhaustion. I don't sleep super well a lot of times, and I've worked with my doctor to help me with that a little bit now, and it's working really well. The other thing is managing my sleep schedule, getting good diet and exercise. If you work at it, and you really focus on it, it makes a difference. But one of my big things to go to when I would be super restless would just be, well, if I get drunk enough, I'll fall asleep.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how many times I look at a study of the brain and it says, well, your sleep is no good when you're intoxicated. It doesn't matter. Like in my head, I am sleeping when I black out, right?
That got me too.
So, man, that's a really tough one. So, like, it's funny, like you always hear like restless, irritable, discontent, and then you hear hungry, angry, lonely, tired.
Yeah.
There's a reason they say those things, right? I mean, those things are just absolutely accurate, And then another big warning for me is any time that I start bargaining. Anytime that I start, anytime that I start saying like, well, it's my friend's wedding, it's a really important thing, or like, well, this is a really cool vacation, and like, I'll just on vacation, or like, I'll just, well, it's just this one occasion, there's just no room for that in my recovery. There is zero just this. There is no I tried to allow for that over the last 3 years, and it just bit me every time. Because if I allow for it once, it might be a day, it might be a week, it might be 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But there will come a time in which it's a 7 to 10 day binge, and I'm waking up on the other side completely demoralized, having hurt my wife, hurt my friends, unreliable at work. It just history repeating itself for me, and that's how my disease acts, and that's my experience with it. And it's because I opened that little door just one time that it just got in there.
And when you go back, it's not just having a beer. It's just full on hot order, everything into it. You go back and you're right where you started. Yeah. Just boom.
I can't open the door a little bit. It goes full on. Was there any part of the AA program or 12 steps that you were like, no way, not a chance, not going to do that?
Oh, yeah.
Which, by the way, both of us a core piece of our program is the 12-step program. So that's why I had that question in here.
Yeah. However you get sober, it's on you. Ours was 12-step program, and but there's all sorts of ways to do it. Love you for whatever way you can.
Right.
But yeah, 12-step program. That no way. When you're first introduced to the concept, I don't know if it was part of the 12 steps that got me. It was when I first started going to meetings and I saw these people, big smiles on their face and hugging each other and just seemed so happy, And when I first went to meetings, I wasn't happy that I wasn't drunk. I don't know how they could be so happy without drinking, and are partying at all. I thought it was some type of cult or something like that. How could you be so happy? You don't have alcohol. Maybe they are and they're sneaking it or something like that. I didn't understand it at first. It just seemed weird, and I thought these people were weird. They don't look as cool as I look, even though I was going through detox. I thought I was way cooler than these people, and then by the time I got some sobriety in me and I started realizing what was going on, I got a little bit of clarity. I wanted to be those guys getting hugs and all that sort of stuff, but at first I thought it was some kind of cult, and there's no way you could be that happy and not be drunk or high. Then I got that happy and I wasn't drunk or high, and my happy days being sober were way better than my happy days being drunk. And so well, that was the first concept that I couldn't handle is the meetings. People so happy and they weren't drunk. I just couldn't get it. But yeah, that was me. How about you, buddy?
For me, there were several. Looking back now, because I've got, even though I'm fairly, my sober date isn't that long ago. I have spent 3 years, working parts of the program, right? And what I'll say is that step 1 and 2, I felt like I could do fairly well. Step 3, turn my will and my life over.
Yeah,
I couldn't give up control.
I'm right there with you.
Right, I had to hang on to control. Step 4 and 5, talk about myself. Sure, I can do that. And I can talk about the hard things to talk about. I can do that. Step 6 and 7, I thought I could do. But then I realized that, first off, they're forever steps, right? They're like, you're never going to completely shed your maladaptive behaviors or your character defects, however you want to look at them. You're never going to completely shed them. They're like a work in progress. Yeah, but was I actually willing to give up my pride and my ego, my armor and my shield that I use to protect myself through all these years, like, that's pretty hard to give up. Those are what I use to protect myself for ages,
We're working
and
on it.
right. Um, I will say that, like, today, daily, I'm doing a practice of turning over my will in my life, and you feel a lot less like you need an armor and shield when you're doing that, and it feels a lot better.
Love feels a lot better than that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then 8 and 9, I made a list. 9, I kind of half-assed it, for no better way of saying it. It's I made some amends that were easier to give, and then some I just left on the table because I didn't feel like it or didn't think the person really deserved it, which is not my choice to make, right?
Half
Like,
measures.
right? 10, 11, honestly, I mean, I'm doing really good on those, and then 12,
If you were doing 10, right, then. Well, go ahead.
Well, okay, 11, I should say. 11, anyway. Yes, I didn't do them quite right. Fair enough. You can critique it. That's why you're my sponsor.
I'm shutting up.
No, you don't have to. Fair enough. I'm happy to admit that my last 3 years of step work has not been pristine. My last few months has been as good as I can do.
You're putting out so much more effort.
Yeah.
You're doing great.
So, and then 12, like, I really didn't put forth the effort there, right? Like, I ended up, having a couple commitments that I didn't necessarily ride to the end. And then, I never did take on a sponsee. Why? Because I didn't feel worthy. Why?
Right.
Because I didn't complete my steps well.
Correctly. Yeah.
So, like, how can I do that?
Yeah.
So,
we're working on it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but feeling a lot better about my whole program these days. And it's a much more thorough program and a much more honest program. I know that the concept of a higher power or God is really central to your program. Can you describe the moment when you gained some clarity on that point?
Yeah. I mean, I've always had, a higher power. I've always had a God, and and I kind of formulated in my mind, um, what God was, and but giving everything up to God, I couldn't do it, like we were talking about, and but but to me, God is love. I mean, love is the strongest, most powerful, beautiful thing that you could ever think of. And there's love, and then there's evil, love, hate, evil, fear. There's love and fear, and love beats the snot out of fear every time, if you ask me. And so love is pretty much the strongest, most powerful thing out there, and it's a beautiful thing. And but I wasn't letting it in all the way, and I think it was really essential in my recovery. And I was at my recovery center, the place I went through rehab at, and I was outside and sitting in a chair out in the outside patio type area, and looking out over the hills out there, and a lot of cows out there, and it didn't smell real good when the wind was going the wrong way. But luckily, the wind was going the right way at the time, and the sun was lower in the horizon, and all of a sudden it just clicked in. Don't know what did it, but I had the warmth of the sun on me, and I had just beauty around me, and I didn't hear anyone talking or anything like that. All of a sudden, I felt that love just taking over, and I had that sense of clarity that alcoholics talk about that. Oh, they actually got, but it was even more than that. It was the big guy upstairs just coming in, and I finally let it all in and realized, that I'm not in charge. That my life is going to be so much better because I'm not in charge anymore. My higher power, my God's in charge now. And when I got that, and when I started practicing that, just because it happened, you got to continue practicing that. And that's when all the serenity came in, and that's when all the choices in life became easier, and the promises start happening, and that's um, that's when it all happened, and it was just took a moment, of letting it in, just letting it in, and all of a sudden, God chooses the time. I didn't, but it was nice to happen. Yeah. So yeah, that's a nice story. I love that.
Yeah.
I could just feel it right now too. I don't like to be a holy roller, and I'm not usually. And I'm not a god that's all fire and brimstone and all that sort of stuff. But when that love comes in, it's just powerful. And, I feel it come in, so I'll talk about it. And so, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
How about you, buddy?
For me, I definitely, I mean, you know me, I have logicked God to bits, right? Like, just to bits. And it's just what I do, and it's born from many reasons that, we can talk about another time. But I did, and I talked about this before the last time that I went into recovery, but I did kind of finally land on and refined, the fact that I don't have to define God. I don't have to put God in a box, in any way whatsoever. So, and I kind of landed on my own personal, Holy Trinity that is made up of faith, the Eightfold Path, and service, right?
Faith and what?
Faith, the Eightfold Path, and service.
Okay.
Which for me is really, faith, that if I do good things, then good things will come, kind of a karma type of a thing. The Eightfold Path, so just do the next right thing is ultimately the concept there. Yeah. And then service, right? Be of service, give of yourself, of what you can give to your fellows in and out of the program at every time, every opportunity that you can. And that's where my higher power lies, for me.
Those are all strong.
The moment in which and if I work all three of those, I feel connected.
Yeah.
In a big way. And then the moment that it kicked in for me was the turning over your will moment, and it was in my first maybe 2 days in residential this time in February. I was just done, I was just done. My way doesn't work, I was just done and acceptance and surrender. It's the only way to describe it. And I felt like I was just on my knees with my hands up, full on surrender, right? Just take it. I'm done. I don't want it anymore. I'm just actually done. I don't want control anymore. I give it up. And it lifted, like that feeling, that burden lifted. And now I do that daily. I get up early in the morning and I give it up every single day.
Yep.
And then I usually have to give it up a few more times during the day. But if I do that consistently, I feel so much better. And yeah, so I just gave it up. I don't, I can't control everything, and trying to control everything makes me miserable.
Yeah.
And as long as I keep that in mind, I walk through life a whole lot happier.
Takes practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And, give everything up, give up control of everything, and then control what I can control, right? Do the next right thing and go help people. And my side of the road is clean. Work my steps, hang out with my sponsor. That's it. So
That's all good stuff, but
that is all good stuff.
Well, I think that's where we're going to have to stop things for now, but we're really looking forward to having you back next week for the rest of our questions.
If you have any questions about today's episode, you can reach out in our reviews or comments. You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram at A2P Discussion. You can reach out to the Riches on email at a2pdiscussion@gmail.com. Thank you for being part of my sobriety today.
Thank you so much for giving us some of your time. We really hope you got something out of today's episode. We would be honored if you would like and share the episode or leave a review or comment with your takeaways. Don't forget to subscribe to tune into future episodes. Have a great day.